and he actually kind of flicks the strings. You just get this killer driving rhythm.
The rack with a certain little bit of manipulation.
So have you ever thought about what is the actual difference between great rock and roll guitar and just the average boring guitar playing? So after years of studying the legends, I've discovered that a huge part of that equation is it's all about rhythm. I mean, if you think about it, the essence of rock and roll is really its driving rhythm. It's that beat that kind of hypnotizes you with repeating motifs. And, you know, even when you see amazing lead guitarists, there's a rhythm that's chugging along in the background, like a train on the track. So today, we're going to be diving into how to be a great rhythm guitarist. You know, one of the things about that is mastering rhythm also is going to massively help your lead playing because it's all kind of integrated together. So we're going to look at 3 different variations on the basic rock and roll rhythm. And then we're going to examine how legends like Chuck Berry or Mark Knopfler use these rhythms when they play. So it all starts with the basic boogie woogie beat, right? That's the heartbeat of rock and roll. That's the train going along the track. So you've got to master that, right? And there's a lot to that actual little beat there. So basically what you're doing there is you're playing a power chord. Whatever key you're playing it in, starting with this basic power chord, just 2 notes, and then you're rocking back and forth between the power chord and then the 6. So for example, going between an E5 and an E6. That's the basic foundation that almost all the riffs and songs and blues are kind of built on that basic beat there. Everything from Elvis to the Beatles to Led Zeppelin, it's all got its roots right there. And it comes from like the stride piano players in the 1920s, in the Texas barrel houses and the Louisiana freight yards, and the finger picking style of the Delta blues men, like the Mississippi country blues players would do stuff like. Which has the same kind of sound, So the real key to rock and roll, though, is to play it really mean with a heavy beat. Check out Stevie Ray Vaughan. Going back and forth there, it's got such a heavy beat. But even with that basic beat there, there's endless variations on it. You can adjust the amount of swing, and you can go from like a heavy swing, like kind of a jazz. Kind of an uptown sound like that to more of a gut bucket shuffle. Or even more of a rock and roll straighter with just a tiny bit of swing. And then you can place the accents in different places. So for example, when you hear Chuck Berry play that beat, right? So one of the things, the way that Chuck would play it would be, he'd play this, say in the key of C here. You just get this killer, really driving rhythm by placing the accents on the downbeats. When you're practicing these things, what you want to do is really step back and kind of listen to how the actual beat sounds, because depending on where you place the accent, it really changes the sound. So basically the accent's going to be on the downbeats. And then in between, you have the upbeats. So you can hear, this is really cool. Check this out. We've got Dave Edmund, who's a brilliant guitar player who kind of plays in the Chuck Berry style. Here's him talking about that Chuck Berry beat, and he calls it the racka racka.
I got it from Chuck, who did it on a few records. And it's a way of doing a rhythm and a beat while you're singing, which normally, if you would do it the normal way, would be. But the rack with a certain little bit of manipulation comes out something like. That's Dave Edmunds, that is, isn't it?
You can hear that rhythm there where you're placing the accent on the downbeats, and it's got a tiny bit of swing to it, and it really kind of bounces along, and you're kind of muting it a little bit right here with just the palm of your hand. You can also really vary the sound a lot by using different kind of picking techniques. Check out Mark Knopfler here. He's playing the basic kind of rock and roll beat. But listen how cool this sounds. Bit of rhythm. he's just going back and forth there playing. You know, so you can create all these different cool rhythms and grooves by just placing the accent in different places. And what he's doing there is he's doing kind of a heavy thumb on the downbeats and then plucking upstrokes. And he actually kind of flicks the strings as well, like this, like that. So he flicks down with his fingers. And you hear that in a lot of Dire Straits songs, that kind of, that really percussive rhythm. A lot of the rock and roll songs, I really kind of studied, like, how do you get that driving, insistent rhythm? Kind of like if you listen to like a J.J. Cale song, like Devil in Disguise, right? You listen to it and the rhythm guitar sounds so fantastic and it's got such a cool feel and it really sticks out, right? For a long time, I'd try and record the rhythm parts and they would just kind of get lost in the mix. And then through trial and error, I discovered that it's so much about the way you're attacking the strings with the pick and fitting the right sound for the right song. So for example, with a song with a faster groove, a lot of times what you want to do is play with a lighter pick. And then rather than playing really hard like this, let the pick kind of pluck the strings. And when you hear that kind of plucking sound, it actually jumps out in the mix a lot more and it kind of stands out because you can hear those strings kind of plucking. The next variation of this is the extended boogie. So all you're going to do is add one extra note, right? So you're going to go, instead of just back and forth, you're going to add in the flat 7 as well. So you're going to go up from the 5 to the 6 to the flat 7. So you get... So like, for example, all the Hollies playing Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress is a great example of this. And all of a sudden it becomes basically kind of like a riff. I mean, even something like the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, that's actually the same thing. When you're playing, even though you're starting on a B note, it's actually, you're playing an E5 there. So it's like... So that's actually kind of like a variation on that. Then you go one step further and you've got the rollover boogie. And that has its roots way back. I mean, if you go back and listen to old Blind Lemon Jefferson songs, you can hear him playing that rollover boogie. I'm leaving town. I won't make me stay. That's rock and roll right there, right? That's just like, that's the late 1920s, 1927, 28. One of the fathers of the blues playing that little riff. That's rock and roll right there, right? Basically, you're taking the boogie woogie shuffle and then you're adding in this kind of walking bass line where you go up from the root to the minor third to the major third, and then you keep going up to the 5th and the 6th. So all you're doing there is you're playing the boogie woogie, but you're adding in this little kind of chromatic walk here. And then there's so much you can do just between which actual notes you accent. Like, for example, if you start on the lowest note and then you accent the highest note of the power chord, which would be the octave, you can create these kind of interesting back and forth rhythms like this. Another part of it is just variations between the first finger and third finger. Like, for example, sometimes you can play twice on the first finger and then twice on the second finger to get this sound. Kind of back and forth like that. Or another variation on that is where you play twice on the first finger only once on the third finger, then you go back. And that gives you a totally different kind of sound because you're playing kind of like a pickup going back into the chord. So a great way to practice these different kind of rhythms is to incorporate some lead guitar playing or some riffs into it as well. It really kind of spices things up. I mean, think like Hideaway, like kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan is playing, where you can play that basic boogie woogie beat and then throw in a few licks. So by mastering these basic boogie woogie rhythms and experimenting with variations, you're not only going to improve your rhythm playing, but you're also going to make your lead guitar playing and your blues lead guitar playing stand out and be way better. So remember, rhythm is the heartbeat of rock and roll. So keep practicing, and if you enjoy this video, give us a subscribe and a like, and we'll see you next time.